Welcome back to Daruma Dojo Dialogues. We are here with Coach Carlos Porto. What's up, Coach?
Good morning, Professor Alberto. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. Well, let's get started with, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about maybe where you're from and how you started Jiu-Jitsu.
Sure, yeah. I came from south of Brazil. There's this big city called Porto Alegre, so I came from a small town very close by. I started Jiu-Jitsu back in 2013, and I never stopped since then, except for the pandemics, like that brief period of time, like nobody was training. And yeah, I'm also a designer. I work with UX design and digital art, and I also like music.
Nice.
And yeah, that's probably, I have a family. I have 2 kids, Marcus and Miguel, and Molly, my wife. And I live here in the Silicon Valley for probably something like 4 years now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I felt like it was longer than that.
In the United States, yes, it's longer, but in the Silicon Valley, specifically in these regions, like about 4 years, I guess.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Before
not
that,
100%
you were in
sure.
Stockton.
Yeah, I've been to Stockton for a few years too. Yeah, I live in the Central Valley and then in the Silicon Valley. That's pretty much where I've been to.
How do you like it over here compared to the other places? Big difference.
Yeah, as probably like the downside is the cost of life. I think like it's pretty expensive here, but at the same time, like I like it's chill, it's safe, it's clean. People are nice. The weather is great. There's not much to do, I guess, like compared to other places like Southern California. I think like probably you could find like more fun stuff to do right there. Mm-hmm. But I really like the people here. A lot of tech people. I was working in tech last year too, so I got to know a lot of people too.
What sort of fun things are you looking to do?
I think at my age, like Jiu-Jitsu is already good enough. Like I like to do some other stuff too. Like yeah. I enjoy hiking. I haven't done that for a little while now. I think I'm a little lazy to do. And winter time is like we get like naturally a little lazy.
Yeah.
And I enjoy playing guitar with my friends. That's something that I would do a lot in Brazil. And now I kind of like meeting some people who like to play guitar. One of those, you like guitar, right? So I think it's nice to hang out and play guitar and have a conversation, have a good time, hang out. And I think you can do that pretty much everywhere. But I would say like Silicon Valley people are more focused to work and study.
Yeah.
So it's harder to find those quality time with friends, right?
Yeah.
Most of my friends are here in Daruma, though.
Definitely. So you're not gonna. I kind of absorbed everything you're talking about, and I want to dive into like a lot of those different details. Like I want to dive into where you're from, and I want to dive into your experience here in America and California, and then your experience as an artist, a family man, and as a musician. So you say you're from. But you're not born and raised in Porto Alegre. You're born in a town near it?
Yeah.
So what's the town?
Yeah, I was born in this small town called Taquari. It's a kind of like a historic place. Like, it's a lot of history out there.
Oh. Historic for what?
It's pretty much like, I would say like it's a very old town. It used to be one of the most important cities of south of Brazil like centuries ago.
Oh, okay.
But like some places they just stop in time.
Right.
So it didn't grow a lot. I think like probably the economy is not that strong. Not much to do too. So like just like I guess 30,000 people or less.
So when you go back to Brazil to go visit your family, you're gonna go to Taquari?
Yeah, I go to Taquari and also Porto Alegre because I have a bunch of friends there. I have some family too.
I bet a lot of people from Taquari end up moving to Porto Alegre, or maybe they have to go to Porto Alegre for work or something.
Yeah, there are like the destinations of people from Taquari are usually Porto Alegre, or there's another town close by called Lajeado. Mm-hmm. It's where I used to study. I went for the college. It's not a big town either. It's like probably like more or less the size of Sunnyvale, a little smaller, I would say. and then Porto Alegre, because it's where the jobs are, right? Like, it's really hard to find a job in Taquari. I think like most people end up leaving that town.
It's
But it's a
like if
nice
people
town.
live in Gilroy, they're going to travel to San Jose to work or something, most likely.
Correct, yeah. Also, fun thing about Taquari is like there's a lot of talented people there with art, musicians, artists in general. I would say like it's a kind of a crib of artists. I have like a bunch of friends from Taquari. They are super talented with music. I used to have a band when I was young, a rock band, a garage band. It never really made money with it, but yeah, Taquari is fun. Every time I go there, I spend at least like a weekend there or two.
You started playing music before Jiu-Jitsu?
Yes, my father was. He never been a musician. He had like this radio talk show. I would say was not professional, just for fun. Was a complete different style of music. Was more like Brazilian country or folk, which is not my favorite. But my father loved that kind of music, and he wanted me to learn how to play.
Oh, okay.
So he gave me a guitar, and then he, keep
old
on
are
pushing me. Probably 14, 15. But I never been a good musician. Always for fun. I never really learned music theory. Never been to school for music or anything like that.
You never took a lesson?
No, I never took a lesson. I learned by myself. And
But you learned a lot from playing with other people.
yeah, I would say so. I like to write songs too. That's something that I do for fun. Like I always did. Like I still do. I have some songs. I think that they went to my house. We are playing one of my songs. Yeah, but all not professionally, right? Like so, only for fun.
Yeah, I've always liked music, and then when I was I think a freshman in high school, a friend of mine that we played baseball together, his younger brother had an electric guitar and a small amp that they bought, but he just gave it up quick. And I think a lot of people give up music really quick in the beginning. Guitar, I think it's the learning curve is steep, right? Like the beginning is really difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one thing that I can definitely connect music and jiu-jitsu, because the critical part is like when you start, right? Like it's pretty hard. If you're a white belt, you walk in, you're gonna get beaten up, not beaten up for real, but you won't be able to do anything. Like people will keep you under control the whole time. So it's easy to give up. It's like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
I can't do this. This is way too hard for me. Like I don't have the talent. Those are very common statements that people, when you ask them, why you give up music? Why didn't you try a little longer? Oh, that wasn't for me. No, it's just because you didn't give yourself the time, right? You need like maybe a couple months, a couple years, and then, a couple decades if you want to be a great professional.
Right.
Not any different of jiu-jitsu. If you start and want to be good right away, you're going to be frustrated for sure.
Yeah. I think people, I don't know, they have to understand that it takes time, like you said, a couple of decades, right? It takes a lifetime to become a master at a musical instrument or at jiu-jitsu. It's not something that happens overnight, and having that kind of a mindset, because now that I'm playing the guitar, I start playing again regularly. It's just something that I'm trying to do every day. It doesn't have to be like, practice an hour every day and be very strict and studious. But if I'm practicing every day without expectations, having fun, learning a little bit, then, over a couple of decades, then after years, you're going to see a lot of progress. So you can't expect to have that progress like right away.
Absolutely, yeah. Obviously, you have to be realistic and understand that to be a professional musician, just like same thing, like to be a professional jiu-jitsu competitor, you got to spend a good amount of time every day. It's not like 30 minutes, 1 hour. That's not going to be enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you will not succeed. Like, especially nowadays, you see a lot of professional musicians. They barely know how to play, and they record something, and sometimes it just happens, right?
Yeah.
But it's obviously not the same for jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, you have to train. There's no way that, like, I got the talent, I don't need to train, right?
Yeah.
In music, same thing. If you want to be a good musician, because in my opinion, here's the big difference. You can be successful with music without being a very good musician. It's proven. Like there are like many artists that you see that they are not that good, but they were like in the right place in the right time. Jiu-jitsu is different. You gotta be really good. There's no shortcut, right? But music, yeah, like if you want to be like really good, you have to at least practice like, if you start with like a couple hours per day. I never been in that place though. Like I'm like I'm a hobbyist for both jiu-jitsu and music.
Yeah.
So never really spend like 4 hours with a guitar per day. Right?
Yeah, if anybody, like I tell people that if they want to be good at jiu-jitsu, they have to practice every day. Like if you want to be good at anything, you have to practice every day, right? So I think, but maybe that for me right now, for playing the guitar, it's like 15, 30 minutes a day. Like that's what every day means for me. Every day for somebody in jiu-jitsu means like, hey, I'm going to come to 3 to 5 classes per week. And then on the days that I don't come to jiu-jitsu, I'm going to do something that's going to help my jiu-jitsu. Like I'm either going to watch technique video, I'm going to do drills at home. Maybe I'm going to go to the gym and do some weight training or go for a walk, right? Because jiu-jitsu is not always, it's not just about like, for me, it's not just about the technique, which is a huge part, right? But it's also about the lifestyle, like doing the things that help build your jiu-jitsu, whether it's doing the study work or whether it's, training your body in different ways. So I think that if you want to be good at anything, jiu-jitsu, music, literature, you have to do every day. No days off.
Yeah, I think like when you love something, it's not that hard. Obviously, like I would say like for jiu-jitsu is a different kind of discipline required. It's very physical. So like just like you said, like I can't really be that good if I just come and train. I have to pay attention what I eat, what I do. It like I shouldn't be like drinking, smoking, doing any of those things because my opponents are not doing it.
Right.
So I can't expect to win if everybody's doing their homework and I am not. Music's not a competition. So I don't have to be as good as you are. I have to be good enough for people to listen to my songs and, oh, I like it. It doesn't matter like if I know a lot or not. Obviously, if you practice and you know a lot of music, you have more tools to build up your songs. Or if you have like a cover band, for example, if you're a very good musician, you're going to be more accurate when you play somebody else's songs. So I would say like it's super important to have discipline as well, but in a different way. Just like you said, I think jiu-jitsu is more like a lifestyle. In my case particularly, I just like I said before, I'm a hobbyist, so I don't really have that lifestyle. I think at a certain point I did, but one topic that we talked about before, being a family man, sometimes it requires more time for our kids and family and work, and kind of like lose a little bit of the control over lifestyle. That's not an excuse, but it is at the same time.
Yeah, it's hard to balance everything. That's a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned like with certain, I think a lot of bands, they start as cover bands, right? Or I think all musicians, every single musician plays other people's music. I never heard of a musician that like I never learned somebody else's song. Like I think it's very common for musicians to like, hey, I like this song, I'm gonna learn how to play it because it's fun. And then throughout that process of learning other people's music, it strengthens their tools, and then they might play that song slightly different, right? And then same thing. I think it's the same thing with jiu-jitsu, especially in the beginning. Even not in the beginning, even myself, I still do this today. Is I see someone do something and I'm like, man, like I want to try that, and then I copy somebody else, and then in that copying process, I adapt it and make it my own.
That's right. I think most musicians start, especially like when they talk about bands, they start playing like, one like copying one band or multiple bands as cover artists. In my case, that's interesting. That's an interesting question because in my case, it was a little bit the other way around. When I started my band back in 2005, 2006, we decided to start with, original songs. Let's just play original songs. If people don't like it, not our problem, right? And I remember there was like some sort of disagreement among the members. Like some people said, like, we can't play original songs only because people don't know those songs. Like if you play somewhere, like people will be frustrated because they don't know how to sing it. They don't know what we are doing. We should play like a lot of cover songs and then maybe like put like one or two or three, like little by little, introduce our songs. I think most bands work that way, but I was a little anxious to show everything we had. So it was like pretty much like a original set list. Oh, wow. We will play like less cover than original. And it worked pretty well. I mean, just like I said before, we never been a professional band, like we never made money with it, but we had for that region, like local, I would say like we were pretty good. Like people like our songs, like people still like it now. In fact, like now I'm going to Brazil next June, and we are planning to do like a little concert there just for friends. Because people love it, like people still like sing the songs. Sometimes they send it to me like in Instagram or say, "Oh, listen to what I'm listening right now. Like, look at what I'm doing."
Where can people listen to it?
Yeah, like they work out, like listening to my songs. It's like, hey,
it's on Spotify or Instagram, or is it on SoundCloud? How do they listen to your songs?
They are in YouTube actually. I have to upload them to Spotify eventually. Yeah, like you won't understand the lyrics though, but the music's there.
Yeah, nobody needs to understand the lyrics. Yeah. Is it what kind of music is it? What would you categorize it as?
It's more like, I would say like it's more like a alternative rock with some influence of like some 80s bands like The Cure, Joy Division, Smith. But it was recorded a long time ago. Like the quality is not great because it was like a home studio. Sorry, my voice is not. It was like a home studio, so like the mix was a little. I have a friend. He has a studio now. It's the same person. Right now, he's doing great work. But back then, he didn't have like a lot of technology. Mm-hmm. So like if you listen to songs and say, hey, like maybe the guitar is too loud. Maybe the drums are too loud. Like it depends. Every song is different, but don't expect to be like super professional. It's like, hey, it's a little noisy. And just like I said before, I do not consider myself a great songwriter or a great musician. I just love it. I just do for fun.
You're the guitarist and the vocalist.
The guitarist and the vocalist, yes.
That's cool. Yes. We'll have to write a song together.
Yes, absolutely. I know you write some stuff too.
Yeah, I'm working on a few different things. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think. I've been writing music for a long time as well. Just like stuff, just for fun, like you said. It's kind of just a creative outlet.
Absolutely, yeah. Like it's for fun. I think it's super important. For me, it's a big challenge to write in English. I just wrote like my first song in English. I know some people from Brazil that they have like they make it very easily, But for some reason, I don't know if I'm very picky with every word I will put in the song. But in English is my second language. I started learning English. I was 31, pretty much, and I'm 38 now. So like 7 years. It's not perfect. It's much better now. But like to write songs,
That's true.
you need, because like you have to go deep in the language, unless you want to like write like very poor ones. But if you want something like to sound like more polished, you gotta know the language deeply. Use like like work on the metaphors and things. At least for the kind of music that I like, lyrics are super important. You can't just like rhyme random things and very shallow messages. So yeah, I have a hard time, but hopefully with your help we can do something great.
Yeah, that'd be fun. From the area that you grew up, so you started music when you were 14, but when did you start jiu-jitsu?
I was 20 something. I don't remember now. I was pretty late though. I probably 27.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I wish I'm like, I think like every single jiu-jitsu practitioner who stays, like, because most, I think like 80% of white belts give up or something like that.
Yes, probably.
Yeah,
a lot,
it's pretty high.
We're trying to change that statistic.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I wish I knew that before, when I was like very, very young. But also like my city, this city that I grew up in, now they have very good jiu-jitsu there. Professor Guilherme, I think that's his name, Guilherme Machado. They have very good jiu-jitsu. There are like even like some good competitors there. But back in 2000s, like no, they didn't even know what jiu-jitsu was. Brazilian jiu-jitsu was popular everywhere except for like countrysides. People didn't know. Like people knew like capoeira or taekwondo, like these road martial arts.
Yeah.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu, that's a funny thing. Jiu-jitsu was already popular here, but wasn't popular in certain parts of Brazil. A lot of people don't know that.
That's interesting.
Big cities, yes, like Porto Alegre for sure. Like I have like dozens of gyms spread out in the city, but in small towns.
Where did you train jiu-jitsu? What city?
So I started jiu-jitsu with Mestre Jonas, Gracie Barra, Cidade Baixa. It is in Porto Alegre. Back then, it wasn't Gracie Barra yet, when I was in the white belt. It was a very small team. We used to call it Caverna do Dragão. It means like the dragon's cave, because it was a very small space with no windows. You only have like kind of like a workout gym, and then jiu-jitsu was like on the second floor, and that's where I started. It was pretty tough because like my professor there, he was like very old school, so it was like very based on like physical, working out really hard to be competitive. I like to say that like in that time I really was passionate about it. I was like more aggressive, and that's where I started, Porto Alegre.
And you were working out at that gym, and then you saw they had jiu-jitsu, and you're like, oh, I'm going to try this? Or you had a friend that was doing it, and they said, hey, come and try?
No, I was just working out one day, and then I remember Mestre Jonas, he's like a very like tough face, right? And always like he walks in, and everybody looks at him, it's like, hey, that guy is the black belt of jiu-jitsu, and he's the professor there. And then like people were kind of like afraid of him because he had like this unfriendly face at first.
Yeah.
But it's a sweet person. He's a friend of mine. And so he said, hey, can you handle me one of those weights? And I said, yeah, sure. And then I started a conversation with him, and then he said like, hey, why don't you come and train with us? And I said, man, look at me, like I'm a nerd. That's not for me. I'm not one of those guys. I said, no, jiu-jitsu is for everybody. You should try. And then I remember like I started, I said like, wow. Because, I think every man, this is a funny thing. I think every man thinks, they all think they can fight by default.
Right.
Right? Like you see like in parties, people, hey. You see like it's all wrong. They're not, it's completely nonsense. But every man believe like, oh, I can defend myself, and that's not true. I remember I walked in, I was beaten up by a white belt girl, like, and not because it's a girl, like girls can be as good as guys, but I didn't know that. So, like, it's a girl and she's a white belt, so I'll have a hard time with it. And she, kicked my butt pretty hard. And then I said, like, I need to do this. I can't just go home and accept that I was beaten up by that person. I was like lighter than me, not as strong as I am, and just accept it. I have to learn some of these things. And then I never stopped. And I would say like today is not that much because of self-defense. Because, like as you grow older, like probably you need a little less. You're not in parties and environments that, these kind of things happen more often, but it's great for self-defense. That's what pulled me in for sure.
It's interesting because that's kind of a similar story to how I started jiu-jitsu, which was I was working out at a gym, and then in the back room, they started doing some jiu-jitsu, like no-gi jiu-jitsu, and the coach came over and was like, hey, come try it out. And I was like, all right. And I was just kind of looking for like a workout, and then it was just a bunch of guys. None of us, besides the coach, none of us knew anything. We were just rolling around, beating each other up, and I was attracted to the physical aspect. And then eventually I had a humbling experience just like you, where I went and trained at a jiu-jitsu gym and got my butt whooped by a 14-year-old, kind of like your son, Marcus. I think Marcus is a perfect example. If somebody comes in who has no idea, right, and they're like an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old, that, like you said, a lot of people have a preconceived notion that they can fight or that they can defend themselves. But if you don't train, you can't fight.
That's true. You don't train. I mean, you can probably fight with people who don't know how to fight either.
Right.
Like if it's like that tough guy from your high school.
Yeah.
Oh, he's good. It's because like everybody else is bad. It's not because he's good, right?
Yeah.
If he walks in here, it's going to be like.
Well, certain people, at that point, like it's, like when it comes to alpha male or dominance, it becomes people that are the strongest or the biggest or the toughest or the most aggressive, right? Like that's like natural. Like like you said, at the high school, nobody knows anything, but this guy who's the meanest, the most aggressive, he's gonna be the alpha. But the moment you get people that start learning, because like this is like I think what makes us different, right? Is that our brain, like once we start to train and then years of practice, like now none of that really matters. It helps, the strength and aggressiveness could help, but if you are untrained, it doesn't matter, because your 14-year-old son, Marcus, which we're pretty much putting him on blast right now, he'll beat you up.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say like I'm a nerd, just like I said. I like to study like different subjects and everything, and I try to make a link because this is really interesting. When you say that to people who don't train jiu-jitsu, they often don't understand what you mean with that. But I believe there's a link with the nature of our species, because it's not about fighting, it's about the confidence that you build.
Yeah.
And this confidence is not that I'm going to fight, that I'm going to try to beat up somebody. It's not about this. I'm against violence.
Yeah.
Right? Like I said, I think everybody should avoid violence. But the thing is, like, you build this natural confidence. I remember when I was in the high school, like, if I would be very frightened if somebody comes to me and say like, hey, why are you looking at me?
Yeah.
I would just look down, because I'd say like, yeah, this guy's going to beat me up. I'd rather walk away. That wouldn't happen now. Like, if you say like, why are you looking at me? I would give you a proper answer. It doesn't mean that I'm going to attack you or something, but it's like, hey, can't I look at you now? Like, is there a law that I can't look at you? I can look at you if I want to, right? But back then, it would be impossible for me to do such thing. I would be like, any person could come to me and, like, scare me away or pressure me. And I think jiu-jitsu gives you that confidence. And I think it's probably about the core of the human being. I think violence is the last resource, and probably like our ancestors back in the caves, they need to rely a lot on their strength and their capacity of fight. And I think we still have that inside of us. So like I think if you learn how to defend yourself, if you know a martial art, you'll be naturally more confident than other people are. That's how I see things, at least.
We're training on a daily basis. We're training a primitive essence that makes us human and strengthening it. Because, like you said, we don't practice to be violent, right? But we are kind of practicing violence every day while training. It's a mini fight.
It is. It is.
You have one person on top of you, trying to pin you, trying to hold you down, trying to make you give up, trying to choke you, trying to break your arm. So we're tapping in to that quote unquote violence. Although the setting is not violent, although it's not me versus you in a sense that it's trying to harm one another or trying to put the other person down. But because we do practice controlled violence, when we go out and into everyday life, we feel less need for it. I don't need to puff my chest out at anybody. I don't need to, look over my shoulder in fear, because I practice that every day.
Yeah, sure. And it's a funny thing, because like we are like in 1 minute we are like trying to kill each other. Mm-hmm. The next minute we are like outside, like we got a dinner together.
Yeah.
Right. Like we are all very, very much like friends. We build this relationship with people we train with. And it's through violence. So it's kind of like a paradox, right? How come you are trying to kill me, like, and 3 minutes later you're my best friend?
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe it's because like that's a natural thing. We see like people like, like psychologists, doctors, people from all backgrounds training jiu-jitsu together. But in the mat, we are all the same. We are all on the same level. I don't care if you are like the president of something. We are pretty much in the same level.
Yeah.
And we all have the same feeling about like, it is violence, but it's not. And it helps you to build this confidence. I like to say that jiu-jitsu is kind of like a spiritual thing. I think there's a connection between jiu-jitsu and your spirit, like who you are, right? I think jiu-jitsu makes the best of people come out. It can make the worst of people come out too. It depends on who you are. I think it makes things come out.
Right.
You see like some people, like they have like some sort of like evil inside of them. When they are rolling, they are mean to their opponents. They kind of like not super fair. They try to cheat somehow. I've seen that before. It's not very common, but there are people like that. Sometimes they walk in a gym and they want to prove a point. They get like the weakest person and use that person as a, so I think jiu-jitsu, it's a little spiritual too.
Yeah.
It has a...
That makes a lot of sense what you're saying. It makes me think that like jiu-jitsu can be like a mirror which reflects who you truly are, right? So I think we all have like that, good and evil in us. We all have that duality, right? And sometimes when you train jiu-jitsu, you are going to be faced with both of it. Some days you're going to have those thoughts and feelings of that some might say is negative, like maybe anger, maybe self-doubt, maybe feelings of inadequacy, maybe fear, right? All these things that we think are negative, but when we confront ourselves with those things, with those feelings and emotions, then we grow and we get to. I think the more we understand that side of ourselves, then the better person that we can be, right? Like, yeah, it's great to. Some days you come in and it's like you have a great training, you have fun, you did some great positions, maybe you got a submission. And it's like, man, I'm happy, I'm having a great time. But sometimes you come in to train jiu-jitsu and you feel like crap, and you leave the gym and you cry in your car because you were exhausted, you got frustrated, you got submitted, you got smashed, you got suffocated, and you feel like you want to quit. But you were confronted with those negative feelings that you're like, okay, I'm going to take this and grow from it. And then the next time you come in, you become a little better. So I think that's what the Jiu-Jitsu does. It reflects who we truly are, and then we have to deal with it and learn from it and grow from it and become a better person.
Yeah,
And
like
in a sense, I think that's spiritual.
yeah, when I try to sell the idea to people, like, hey, come and train jiu-jitsu, like people are very skeptical at first. They think like, fight? I don't want to learn how to fight. That's not important to me. I'm a peaceful person. I run away from fights. So do I. Like so are you. Like are you going around and getting into fights? No, most people are not. I think like what we earn from jiu-jitsu is much bigger than that. We're gonna talk about Marcus for the third time now. You remember when he walked in, he couldn't look into your eyes.
Yeah.
Couldn't shake your hands. Of course, he was pretty young, like probably like 12 years old or so. But remember how shy he was? He wouldn't run away from the picture. You have to catch him and put him back to the picture because he would run away from it.
Literally.
Look at him now.
Yeah.
He's friends with everybody and like he's making jokes and having fun and like, it's a completely different kid.
He's allowing himself to be himself. He's expressing himself. He feels safe in this environment to practice being who he is.
And especially for him, like imagine, like I admire that a lot. Like you are like half size, like he's what, like 120 pounds, roughly, less than that, 115 pounds. And he's training people like us, like, 200 pounds. And he's here every day, like comes here every day. Like sometimes he's smashed like all night because they're all bigger than him, and we all fight jiu-jitsu too. When somebody new walks in, it doesn't matter how heavy or big they are, he still can handle them, but he can't handle people like me and you yet. So and still like next day he's here again. And if I can't drive him here, he's gonna get his bicycle and come over by himself. So that's the power of transformation that jiu-jitsu has on people, right? And that's what I try to sell. Like you can do much more than you think you can do. And that's why you see like people from all ages, like 6 years old, training. I don't think they are doing this because they want to fight.
Right.
It's because they are seeing like other benefits, and I think like most of those benefits are mental and not that much physical. That's how I see things, at least. I think like most of us do.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Why did you come to America?
Yeah, that's a long story, but basically, I came as a visitor. I wanted to experience life in America, like for a few months. Like when you're in Brazil, you hear like all sort of fantasy from America. Like, hey, people there, like Coca-Cola is gonna come out of the of the. It's like people think that's much greater than it is great, but you think like everything is easy here, that you're gonna get rich right away, you're gonna drive a Ferrari or whatever. Like people have like these very childish views of the United States, the first world in general. And I wanted to see that. I was like, is that really, is that real? Like people are really like making this insane amount of money. And I came as a visitor because I just wanted to see like close, like what people are doing. And I stayed with some friends for a few months. I didn't plan to stay here. I just wanted to see. But then I met Molly. We started dating. I went back to Brazil. And then I decided to come back here for the second time because of her, more than because of America only, right? I love America, but back then I was, I was okay in Brazil. Molly made me come back, basically.
A romantic story.
Yeah.
Love story.
Pretty much.
That's nice. And where you're from in the southern part of Brazil, you guys do barbecue? Churrasco?
Yeah, the Brazilian barbecue that people know about all over the world is basically a typical cuisine of south of Brazil, right? Like it's a cultural thing called churrasco. So the gauchos is the way they call my people. We are, which means like something like cowboys. We cook churrasco really well. Like it's perceived to be like the best of Brazil, and that's why I love to cook it. It's more like a cultural thing. Like I like to see like people enjoying it and say, "Hey, do you like it?" And people say, "Hey, I love it. I feel good about it." You know, it's more like showing my culture to people through food.
Yeah, it's like not every time, but oftentimes when we do events, it's like we like to do a barbecue, churrasco. You and Giglio cook it up, and we really appreciate it. Like it's delicious, and it's not there's subtleties to the art of cooking the meat, right? But at the same time, it's not just like the meat and everything. It's just kind of like the camaraderie of having a barbecue because everyone's hangs around the grill, and then the way that you guys do it, where you cut the pieces small and everyone kind of shares and passes around the tray. It's that kind of like togetherness.
Yeah, it's a different way to eat. Sometimes people are like, "Hey, can I get a plate?" And say, "Yes, you can. You don't have to. You can just like pick it up." Uh, Giglio is a black belt in churrasco. Like he really knows how to cook it. Sometimes I burn it a little bit. I still have like a little trouble with timing because that's the secret, right? Like when you're grilling, it's all about like timing. I have to pay attention to the color. If it's too dark, it's probably because you burned it. Especially the picanha, right? Picanha has an exact timing. So Jiggly is really good at that. I'm still learning. And, of course, there are people who like know even more than him, but he's pretty good at it.
How did you learn?
My father used to cook that all the time. He was great. And I think like in south of Brazil, everybody know, like all men, basically all men know how to do it. This is the nowadays I think like it's not like that, but before like men wouldn't cook except for churrasco. Like most of the time, girls would be cooking, but churrasco was like a man thing. Every Sunday morning, your daddy would just go out, get some meat, and grill it every Sunday. It's kind of a tradition. I think it changed a lot, but that's how it used to be like back in '90s.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of I like. It's nice talking about kind of like your lifestyle and like what you like to do because when I talk about this and I start thinking about it, I'm like, man, like Carlos is an artist, like in so many different ways. Like you like to cook, which is kind of like an art, right? Because you're paying attention to the subtleties. You have to be very present of the moment and the timing. You like to play music. You do jiu-jitsu. And you also, you're like you mentioned earlier, you're a graphic designer. But it didn't start with computers, right? You also draw, or what other avenues do you express your art?
Yeah. Yeah. I always been like very, very visual to learn and to express myself. So I would say like that's probably my greatest skill. It's drawing and setting up things visually more than music or obviously more than jiu-jitsu. Since I was very small, like I don't really remember how I started drawing. I grew up drawing. It's even like older than my first memories. Because I love it. Like I wouldn't pay attention in the class. Like people like teaching the class, like my teachers, hey, why are you not copying that? It's like, oh, sorry, because I have attention deficit disorder too. So like I would like just be distracted drawing something, and then probably because like I'm naturally inclined to do that, right? And martial arts now, like martial arts is also an art.
Right.
In a different way, but it's also like expression. It's a body expression. So yeah, I'm all about arts for sure.
I've seen some of your characters, like your digital characters. They're really cool.
Yeah. I used to be a 3D artist, which is like very popular, like in the games industry.
Right.
I never really worked with games. I was working more like with architectural things. But now I changed a little bit my field. I working more like with tech. It's not as artistic. It's not artistic at all, actually, but still require like visual design skills. And that's what I'm doing now. That's what I'm trying to do now. I think it's because at certain point you have to care a little bit about money too, and art
Yeah.
is not great for. Unfortunately, like it's not as valued as some other skills. Like if you are good in coding, engineering, like I think you are probably like you have more opportunities there. And then I try to go like a little bit that way now.
I'm listening to a book called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. He's like a really famous music producer, and he's worked with some of the best musical artists of our generation, and he has a talent of bringing the best out of them. And so, I really enjoy art as well. And so I was like, I'm listening to this guy's book, and I'm kind of halfway through it, and it's really interesting. And this morning he was saying something like, we are instruments in the orchestra of the universe, right? We're players in this universe, and we play our part. And that's how we express ourselves. But everything that we express ourselves is coming from the grander scheme. And he made a great example of bees, right? Like his bees, they go to flower, and they pollinate. And if it wasn't for that, like so many animals wouldn't exist. Like our whole ecosystem would fail as far as like animals and plants' existence. But the bees probably don't think or probably have no idea that what they do have such a huge impact on a grander scheme. They're just playing their part.
Yep.
And I think art serves a similar purpose to that. Like you create a song that you like because you're playing your part in creating your expression of what life is to you, or you play your part doing a technique in jiu-jitsu and passing the guard a certain way and helping people, and you play your part by drawing digitally or sketching or doodling, and then even if nobody ever sees it, you've expressed it, you've put it out there, right? And I think people, like you said, look at art and sometimes they're like, this is not as important as coding, or this is not as important as this, right? It's just like, but perhaps what we do as artists plays a bigger picture than we think.
Absolutely. Music is vibration.
Yeah.
Literally, sound is vibration. When you play like a guitar string, it's vibration to the air, right? And I think we are all vibration. At certain point, like if you go like all the way to the atomic level, everything is moving. So obviously, everything you do, everything you express has an impact in the universe, bigger or smaller. Sometimes something really small that you do now, you don't even realize that's going to turn into something big that you didn't see in the other side. But also, like again, going back to Jiu-Jitsu, like right now I'm teaching some private classes, especially for beginners. And I feel like being able to share the little bit that I know with somebody else, the huge impact that has.
Yeah.
And so like teaching is also an art, coaching is an art, and makes me feel really good. It's just like any other expression, just like playing a guitar, right? See like in their eyes, like, hey, I learned how to do this. How cool, right? It might be not that cool for us because we have been doing that for a long time. But for a brand new white belt, just started like learn like to do like a simple Americana or a Kimura, they were like, wow, I can keep them under control by doing this. And you see the like the light in their eyes. and that's also like art. That's probably why martial art. One more concept to include, right? It's not any different for me, at least.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So you mentioned that now you're playing a bigger role at Daruma Dojo. So we met when I was the head coach at UFC gym, and then you came and followed me here. You're since we met, like you're a really good friend of mine. I love having you at the gym. I love spending time with you outside, playing guitar, hanging out, talking smack, eating good food. It's just a lot of fun. So I really appreciate you, man. You're like,
Oh, thank you.
I love you.
I love you too.
The so yeah, I wanna like just explain for everybody that Carlos is at the moment, he helps cover a lot of the classes here whenever we need you. But you're a huge part of Daruma Dojo. You and me, when we first opened up the place, I'll never forget when we spent hours here late at night making the sign. We made the sign for the outside, right?
I helped a little bit with this wall too, like to paint.
And my dad was like, you need to help him. He doesn't know how to paint. And I was like, what? No, he's an artist. He knows how to paint.
No, like painting walls is completely different. That's a different technique.
No, yeah, right. You helped paint some of the walls, but the sign, well, that was fun. You created that digitally. We did that, and now I'm excited for how you can continue to play a role with the community here. And I think a lot of people now that are taking your private lessons, that we have a handful of students that are starting to take your private lessons. They're getting a lot out of it, and I'm hearing a lot of great feedback of what a great coach you are. So I hope people take advantage of that.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel really good about it. Like just as I always said, I want to see Daruma growing. I think you deserve. I think you're a great professor and a great person. Just as Keiko, it's our family business. I hope it grows more and more. And you can always count on me. And I do this because I love it. Just like coaching private lessons now, just like I said before, it pays back, and it's not about the money that the little money that they put there, because I think it's a good investment for students to get started, right? Especially if you never trained Jiu-Jitsu before, it's really hard to blend in. You come in, there are like 30 people training, like the coach. It doesn't matter how good of a professor or coach you are. You can't go one by one every class and see what they are doing. So they'll take a long time to adjust certain things that in a private lessons they can adjust like in 1 hour or so. So I think it's a great investment. But for me, it's not about the money. It's about seeing them learning those things. And hey, now I can train and do that correctly. Right? Sometimes there are people like doing private lessons with me now. They have been training for months, and they didn't know some simple things, but just because, again, they can't be corrected one by one every class. They have to do their best, but private classes adjust them, little things. I'm not a black belt yet. Hopefully one day I'll be, but I'm not asking for that. Don't worry. But I try my best, sharing what I know. I have a very old school jiu-jitsu. I like the basics. I like the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I'm trying to expand that and learn some modern stuff. But, I still I'm a thick guy and not so light. Certain things are hard for me. So what I like to share with the new students is hey, if you have a good basic, you'll be able to defend yourself. You'll survive. Don't worry about these fancy guards, these fancy sweeps. You learn those if you want to, but right now stick with the basics. Learn how to close the guard properly, how to do a scissor sweep correctly,
Yeah.
and then you succeed. You just have to focus on things that you need to know to start, and that's the focus of my work as a private coach.
Yeah, I love it. If if people want to take advantage of your sessions and to book some of your time, what should they do? Should they email you? Should they text you? Call you? Should they just see you at the gym? Like, how can we? Maybe some of the students are unaware of the classes that you're teaching.
Yeah, for that purpose, I probably should come a little bit more on the fundamentals class. Right now, I come in more like in the late class, 7:30, so I don't have a lot of beginners. But, they can find me in the Daruma members chat in WhatsApp and get my contact from there and text me or send me a message in WhatsApp or email or call if they get my number or talk to me in the gym. So all those things work.
Yeah.
Like all they have to do is like walk and talk to me. I'll be more than happy to help any person.
Nice. Cool. So if you are a beginner, white belt, blue belt, and you are trying to strengthen your fundamentals and become a better jiu-jitsu practitioner and learn and strengthen your techniques with your sessions, reach out to Coach Carlos. You can find him at Daruma Dojo. He's pretty much here every day, usually, like he said, for the beyond fundamentals, but I think he should come to the fundamentals more. And then if you're on the group chat, go to the group chat. You can find him on Instagram. What's your Instagram tag?
It's Carlos Porto .12, I guess. Yeah.
Thanks for the time, Carlos.
Thank you, Professor Alberto, for inviting me. My honor.
My pleasure.